Okay, we are alive. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Women Will virtual fireside chat. My name is Vanessa Mbamara. I'm the Women Will lead for Francophone Africa, CEO of The Talion, and a Google partner. I kind of lead several Google initiatives across the region. And joining me today is Charles Murito. Charles is the Google Africa Director for Governance Relations and Policy. Charles, it's an honor to have you here today. Thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule to have this chat with us.
Thank
Okay,
you. Thank you, Vanessa. Pleasure
you're
being here.
welcome. So we have a number of questions to ask Charles today. But before then, or during that, I'd like to know what questions you have or you might have for Charles. So please feel free to share those questions with us using the chat box below, and we'll get to those questions during the Q&A session. So I plan to drive this conversation for about 10 minutes before we dive into your questions. So to get started, Charles, I'm going to invite you to say a few words, but I'm not just going to ask you to talk about what you do at Google. I mean that's important, but I wanted to also share a fun fact about you, maybe a hobby, but something that we don't know about you just yet. So, Charles, over to you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today, especially talking about allyship, both in the entrepreneurial space with women and also supporting women in corporate environments. It's an absolutely important thing to me, and when it comes especially to diversity and inclusion. And so it's a pleasure to be talking about this today. So what I do on a day-to-day basis is that I lead the government affairs and public policy team at Google for Sub-Saharan Africa, which I have been doing for the last 9 months or so. And leading on that, I was the country lead for Google Kenya prior to that. And fun fact about me, I guess, is that I will be taking my paternity leave in the next few days, and I will be switching off work hopefully for the next month and a half or so.
Okay, that is paternity leave. That's a new one. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Okay, so like you did mention, we're going to be talking about allyship and how to actually make work work for women entrepreneurs. So, what are some of the roles that you think that men can play to, supporting women in business, especially here in Africa?
There's a lot of things that men can do to support women from an allyship perspective. I think the first thing that's really important is the ability to ensure that, one, you show up authentically to support women whenever they need help, especially when it comes to mentorship. I think that that's a really important thing for us to do as men. Secondly, is to ensure that when women are not in the room, we also stand up for them. And I think that that's an important thing because for me, there are two elements. One, there's the element of mentoring and mentoring entrepreneurs. And that's when you're doing it on a one-to-one basis or even one-to-many. But then the second one, which is absolutely as critical, is the sponsorship piece. So when people are not in the room, are you standing up for them? Are you talking about them? Are you advocating for them? And it's important for us to ensure that we do that because, as you know, historically, we have this term old boys club whereby the men will get together, they will talk business. I know historically it used to be said that business deals would be closed on golf courses or in pubs, and most of the times the women would not be there. So I think it's absolutely critical for us to make sure that the time that women are not around or those women are not around, we're still voicing their interest and making sure that we are purposeful in terms of the decisions that we're making. So those are just two things that I can think of right now.
Yes, I totally agree with you on that. And then you did mention on, mentorship and standing up for women, okay, which is very, very important. So I want to take us back to a the Google conducted research recently, and one of there were three core things that women had challenges with, especially women in entrepreneurship, and the top of it was self-confidence. Okay. I remember back then when I was still working, and I knew that I wanted to do much more, but I didn't have that confidence. I didn't have the finance to, to just launch out there. But I felt that, if I left my job, I wouldn't succeed. I wouldn't believe on myself. But I did take the leap, and I had an enormous support from, my colleagues and my then boss. Okay, he supported me. He told me, Vanessa, you've done an amazing job here, and I think you can. And so the support was there, when I was transitioning from my 9 to 5 to becoming an entrepreneur, to leading my own business. So I'd love for you to also share, a personal experience. How can men help us, okay, in the area of self-confidence, to boost our self-confidence? Like you also mentioned, standing up for a woman. So if a conversation is happening and she's not there, um, and then, of course, if she hears that, you were talking about her, or some other man was talking about her achievements, that would really go a long way. So how do you think that, shed more light on this? How can men help us build more confidence in our entrepreneurship journey?
Those are fantastic points that you've made. And actually, the point regarding your journey, your personal journey, is a really good example of how we as men can be present and when women are not there. But also, I think something that many times we fail to do as men is to speak up for women when they're there in the room. And I'll give a quick example. I know that historically you'll have a situation whereby a lady will say something within a broader meeting, and then a man will then take that sort of comment, build on it, and it will almost be taken as the idea was generated by that person. So there's this notion of when you see something as a man, you should also say something, right? So you speak for that person. And I think the power of that, and this not only just happens to women, it's especially even minorities, is really the ability whereby you're around a particular table, someone should speak up for you when they see something not being done the right way. And that is a really critical thing, which I think will build confidence and someone can be able to see on a one-to-one basis. The second piece that I will stick on this notion of a meeting environment is ensuring that you're inclusive, so that when you're getting ideas or having different people speak and you notice that someone or a female is not talking within that particular meeting, right? Make sure that you, as the chair of the meeting or the person who's convened that meeting, you call upon them, right? Get their ideas. So in that case, I would say, hey, Vanessa, I know that you haven't said something. Is there anything you'd like to say about this particular topic? What that does is that it pauses the meeting and gives you the bandwidth or the opportunity to also raise your voice and speak. And that is something that's really important. And then last but not least, which I think is something that is important around confidence, is really working on one-on-one basis with various people to ensure that they understand what they bring to the table and what that way of building confidence is something that they can be able to then shine. Because most people do not get to where they are just because of luck. I think luck is a really important part, but also the ability is there. And so if someone is introverted or is not talking much, it's important for us to pull them in, ensure that they're talking, ensure that they are bringing their ideas to the table so that they can continuously build that confidence and bring it to the table.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Charles. I want to because this is a very, it's found out that when men stand out to support or speak up for women, um, in quote, their colleagues or other people, even sometimes women, see them as what's that word again? A wimp. They call them a wimp, so they see them as weak. They see them as, hey, you're not the man. As a man, you should, you should be authoritative, you should lead and things like that. Why is this so? And how can we educate this, other people, other men to embrace supporting more women? Okay. I mean, what are your thoughts around this?
So I may something I may say something controversial. I think if if someone perceives someone who's standing up for men or for other underrepresented minorities or people in underrepresented groups as wimps, then the problem is actually that
Exactly.
to me there's actually it's not an issue on the person who's doing it. The person who's doing it should continue doing it, do it with confidence, and know that that is the right. So the perception of other people towards that person's actions, especially of it, is that where I come from, from where I, so I would actually just completely disregard kind of perception and continue doing the things that I do, knowing that that is the right thing to do. And most importantly, also build more allies who can be able to do that more and more. So that, you know, to a certain extent, I am sad that we're having this conversation right now because this shouldn't be the exception. It should be the norm, right? We should be supporting our women as the normal thing or the normal order of business every single day. The only reason we're actually having this conversation today is that it's unfortunate that that is not what we do as the normal, regular thing on a day to day basis. So our women, right? And I look at just a couple of days ago, I actually posted something on Instagram where it was in relation to Kamala Harris being the first vice president in US history, female vice president, and also woman of color. And what I said is that I hope that that image, because there was an image whereby Kamala Harris was walking, but the shadow was an image of a small girl. I don't know if you've seen it. It was
Yes,
trending
I
a few
did. I have seen that.
weeks back. And I just put something to the point that I hope that every young girl and woman can see that as something that inspires them to achieve everything that they ever wanted to do. But more importantly, that the men in their lives can be able to support those ambitions and not be threatened by them. And I think that it's so important that we as men ensure that we stand up for women because the reality is we are sons of mothers,
Mm.
right? We're husbands to wives and fathers to daughters. So at the end of the day, we have women all around us. And if you really personalize it and ask yourself, what do I want for my mother? What do I want for my wife? Or what would I want for my daughter? Then it stops being an issue whereby the it's not the norm. And I think that that's the way we should look at it, because I think that it's something that is just the right thing to do, and we should encourage our young boys from a young age to be raised to love and support women, and then vice versa, because at the end of the day, we should be supporting each other.
I totally agree with you. Makes me remember something I saw on a friend's timeline. And, she was talking about the fact that, there's a lot of focus on the girl child, on women, supporting women, grooming them, guiding them to be the perfect woman. but then we're not doing a lot on the other side, on their counterpart. So we're not grooming them, we're not telling them what they should do or what they shouldn't do or how to relate to the other, to the women. So I think that it's also important that we take this way back, to guide them so they understand that, we need the support. We're supposed to work together as a team. So now that we're talking about, some of the roles they should play and some of the things they shouldn't do, let's bring it back to the women, okay? What are
Yes.
some of the advantages? So yes, the allyship is there. It's very important. How can we take advantage? What are some of the things that we as women should do to take advantage of this allyship, to encourage it, so that it's not something that we just talk about, but something that we do and believe every day of our lives?
So I'll start off by giving a couple of things. One is that the women need to be ambitious, right? Ambition will help you, it will guide you towards what you want to achieve. And that's a really important thing. And that's basically helps you understand where do you want to go with your life, with your career, with your business, whatever you want to do. The second thing is around ability, because there's absolutely no substitute for ability. If you do not know your stuff, you cannot be able to thrive. And that goes to business or the professional career in terms of a corporate career. You have to know your stuff. You have to be the master of your domain in terms of your expertise. You really need to be great at that. And strive to be second to none, right? And that should be the thing that you're striving towards. And then last but not least, having a positive attitude. You have to be excellent in terms of the things that you as an individual want to achieve. And those three things also apply to men, right? So it's not just applying to women, but they also apply to men. And so that's the first thing that I would say. You know where you want to go as a woman, you have your expertise in your domain, and you have the right attitude. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to attitude, only you can control the way you show up every single day. So those are the things that I would say. Secondly, once you have that, you know where you want to go, you're the best, or you know your stuff, you have the right attitude, ensure that you take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves, right? Don't be afraid. It's really important, because I think that there's a piece of research that said that when men see a job spec, for instance, and they meet somewhere between 50% of what's being required, they will apply for the job.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
When women see the same job spec and they hit about 80, 85%, they decide, you know what, let me take a bit more time. Let me build the rest of this. And then later on, I might apply. So it's important that you take your chances, because many times you may not have people giving you those chances. You need to take them, right? Show up, take those chances, because what's the worst thing that can happen? You don't get it. But if you don't take your chances, you're 100% guaranteed that you're going to lose. But if you take your chance, it's 50-50, right? You're increasing your odds. So take your chances. Then the second thing is surround yourself with both men and women who want the best for you, and who will encourage you to continue pursuing what you're trying to do. Because you need to have those cheerleaders around you. And those cheerleaders will come in the form of men and women, right? It's people who want the very best for you. So it's really important that you surround yourself with the right people. And those people will also do two things. They'll help you increase your positive attitude, and they'll also build your confidence. So that's a second part. And then the last piece that I want to mention is about failure. You will fail in whatever you try and do, right?
True.
But it's not about how often you fail, it's how many times you get back up, right? So have that sort of relentless pursuit of trying things over and over again. If you fail, learn from that experience, know where you went wrong, and then try it differently so that the next time around you're even better. And the more you do that, I guarantee you will thrive at some point.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you've said everything, and I want to share something that an experience I had, because we've had a number of discussions in Francophone Africa, and I remember a time we had a women will session, stroke I Am Remarkable. So I Am Remarkable is also another Google initiative, to
Yes.
help women from self promote themselves. Okay, and during this session, it was a very emotional session. And when we had a vote, and we had people talk about what is that thing that really holds them back, and it's fear of the unknown. Just like you said, what do you have to lose? Okay, the moment you already stop yourself, the moment you're saying no, you're already failing. Okay, and fear is a big factor for a lot of women, even myself. Way back then, I used to be scared of so many things. I mean, I don't know what would happen, but that fear of, or that thought that it might not work, I might not get the job, or I wouldn't get accepted. How can women deal with that? I know you've talked a lot about this, but can you just take this one step back, and how what can they do to deal with that thing that holds them back from launching out, that fear that holds them back from self-promoting themselves. They are ambitious, they have goals and ideas, but that thing just tells them you're not good enough. You can't do it. He's better than you. Your boss is never going to accept your proposal or your leave. Things like that. How can we? I'll say we because we're all women. One word, 2 words. Because I know there's a woman out there listening, and she's probably experiencing that same thing. She has this big idea, but she doesn't know how to launch because she's afraid, of what people will say. Afraid of failing. What would you tell that woman if she's sitting right in front of you?
I would say Lewis Hamilton is now the most winning Formula One driver with 94 wins, and just tied Michael Schumacher for the most number of championships, world championships. And last weekend, I was watching an interview that he was doing where he was talking about his own fears and how he, the most winning Formula One champion in the world, is afraid sometimes, and sometimes feels like he can't go on and has those doubts. So, in essence, we all have those doubts. It doesn't matter whether it's a male or female, whether it's Lewis Hamilton or myself or you. We always have those self doubts. What's important is to get back up and get out there and keep moving. Because at the end of the day, it's only until when you just start taking that step after step after step, you then achieve the summit, or you summit the mountain that you're trying to climb. And I think the most important thing is to always know that as long as you know where you want to go, i.e., what I call either your North Star or the ambition that you're trying to achieve, as long as you have that, you can always be sure that even when you fall back, you can have something that you're working towards. So I would say it's okay to be afraid, but really the most important thing is to have that resilience, persistence, and also patience to just keep trying. And if you do that enough times, you will thrive.
Thank you so much. I mean, you're just hitting you're just getting straight down, and you're giving me what I want. Thank you so much. So, I mean, you talk like a pro. I know that you're a pro. I know yesterday you were saying, I'm not going to say those things you said yesterday. But anyway, have you had any experience mentoring a woman before? Have you mentored anyone, worked close with any woman before? You want to share an experience with us? I'd love to hear that.
I have mentored many people in in my life, and women as well. And I think about it in sort of two ways, right? I think about mentorship from a perspective of one of my really good mentors who I highly valued for so many years. And what he said to me, let me set the context. His name is Richard King. At the time when I met him, he was in his mid 70s. I was in my early 20s, so quite a significant age difference. And one of the things he said to me is that mentorship is not a one-way thing. You're constantly learning from each other. And he said, in as much as he's mentoring me, I am also mentoring him, right? And it's only until a later point when I reflected on those words that it actually made sense, because as much as I was learning so much from him, he was also learning a lot about my generation and the things that we were doing, etc., which was helping him in his own business and in the way that he was looking at things. So that's the way I think about it. But to come back more specifically to your question, I have a couple of people who I mentor, especially in and around the tech ecosystem, because that's where I currently am focused in. And the way I think about it is that any support that I can be able to provide people, especially based on my experience, both personal and professional, are things that can be useful. And I'm a strong believer in that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And so I'm always keen to do that. Perhaps the one caveat I have to say is that sometimes I feel like I don't have enough time to do
Mhm.
as much as I would want, just because of the nature of my role and some of the other things that I'm doing. But I'll still continue trying to do that, both for women who are entrepreneurs, but also within my role itself, making sure that as I continue to work within Google, that I am that mentor who can be able to help, and sponsor as well, who can be able to speak on behalf of various people, whether they're in the room or outside the room.
Thank you so much. Hearing some of the things that you had to say, especially about helping women build confidence, speaking up for women, because a lot of times they do not have the, should I call it the platform? Not that they can't, but then sometimes they're actually kept at the back and they're not given that platform. So I mean, I love everything you talked about, giving them that platform, giving them that opportunity and speaking for them. Okay, because I believe that women are, we have what it takes. We can drive economic growth. We have so much potential. There's this thing about, whatever you give a woman, she takes it and she multiplies it and she gives it back to you. So when we get that support, and all of that, we build resources, we build things, and then, it kind of just, it grows from there. So thank you so much for everything that you have shared. We're going to look at some questions. We're going to take questions from our audience. But before then, before I, bring some of the questions, so you're going for paternity leave. That is interesting. I mean, how old is your boy?
So my son is 14 months old.
Oh my goodness! And
Yeah.
I imagine that you're looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I would like to mention on that is that talking of organizations, both I know we're talking about entrepreneurs and
Mhm.
but also just more holistically, I think one of the things, the greatest things about Google that we do is this deliberate action that we take towards diversity and inclusion, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's something that I have been working on at Google, both diversity from a racial perspective as well as gender. And there's a couple of things that we do at Google which I think are really critical, and more companies should apply this. And I'm not saying that we have everything right, but we certainly are deliberate about improving this. And I'll just touch on a couple. One is this notion of paternity leave. And I know that not many companies can be able to give as much time as we get, but we do get 12 weeks of paternity leave. And that is something that's really powerful because the message that gives is that you, as a father, it's important for you to also be in the lives of your children. And here's the time dedicated for you to do that. And you shouldn't feel guilty taking that time. And I think that that's something that's really important. The second one comes around hiring. And this is something that I really take seriously, especially when I am hiring for people within my team. And that is the point that you need to have an equitable pipeline of candidates so that when you have good qualified candidates, when it comes to the shortlisting point of an interview session or an interview cycle, then the best candidate will win, right? But if you just have all male in the pipeline, right, or no underrepresented groups in the pipeline, whether it's racial equity, etc., then you're certified to have and amplify the same sort of bias that you already had, right? If you only have men in a pipeline and no women, you'll be guaranteed to hire a man, right? If you have no black people in a pipeline, you'll be guaranteed not to hire a black person. So I think it's important from that hiring cycle to be deliberate about how we build our teams and how we get equitable numbers of people, candidates coming into the pipeline. And then the last bit is around this notion of promotion. So the ability to ensure that we're promoting equitably is really important. And that means that we have the right systems in place that encourage that and that we do not dock women in terms of their careers because, for instance, they go out on maternity leave for 16 or 20 weeks. So those are things which are really important to really ensure that diversity and inclusion is something that we're thinking about because not only is it the right thing to do, but it actually makes business sense to do that. The more diverse you have ideas around the table, the better you'll be able to serve the customers that you're trying to service.
Exactly. I agree with you on that. So we have questions coming in. The first question is, what role can men play in women empowerment? Can you share a few, lights on that?
What roles should men
What
play in?
role can men play in women empowerment?
I think it goes to a couple of the things that I said, right?
True.
First of all, make sure that you're showing up for women and standing up for them. If you see something wrong, speak up and speak up for the women within that particular circle. At the same time, if someone is not in the room, speak for them. Be an ally, be a sponsor, right? And really ensure that you're there because at the end of the day, it's important to note that that is your family, right? And one other thing that perhaps I should explicitly say is that we need to empower our women from the point that they are born, right? So as they grow up, ensure that you're empowering the girls to be confident, to know that they can achieve whatever they want to achieve, and I think especially in the world that we're now living in and the number of women who've really broken through, I can give you a list of women who I absolutely admire. And these are women who've really broken through and shattered glasses in many various forms. And I think that the more we see people like us, the more women see people like them, the more that they will be more confident and they will be able to achieve more.
Thank you very much, Charles. So this is another question. It says, how does social media or the digital world help in amplifying and reaching to women in local communities?
I'll go back to the point I made about the image of Kamala Harris walking, and you had this shadow of a small girl. And I think that to me, there is no better illustration than how social media can be able to amplify the power of equity and the confidence that women need to build. And if that image, I actually don't know how many times it was seen around the world. I received it on various platforms, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, WhatsApp. So it was something that was trending massively. So if that image went to so many places and then raised the conversation, that is something that's really powerful. But I'm going to talk also about something that maybe some good that may come out of a negative situation. And I think it's if you see certain negative connotations or situations that women have been in, right? Whether it's abuse or other types of situations. And we talk about this around social media or other platforms. What is really important is that that also raises the awareness that we're now conversing about these things, and that fact that we should stop or put a stop to those kinds of abuse or suppression, etc. Because if we don't do that, then it's holding back our girls and our women. So I think that social media and the technology holistically has an important place to play. And then the last thing that I want to touch on is this notion of ensuring that when we're looking at the digital divide, organizations are being deliberate about closing the access gap, right? So, for instance, women historically have had a challenge of where they do not have as many or as much access to mobile phones and smartphones, etc. So it is really important for us to ensure that we're encouraging and closing that gap. And that has come in sort of many various ways. At Google, one of the things that we've done is that we partnered here in Kenya with Safaricom to get a low-cost device. And what was great is that for the first time, there was an equitable access in terms of the people who are buying those devices and also activating the internet on those devices. So I think that that's something else that we need to really leverage and ensure that we continue closing that gap when it comes to technology, because it's a really powerful thing for us to ensure that we're covering off.
Thank you again, Charles. So I have one more question for you. How can women practice safe allyship without falling prey of sexual harassment? This is a deep one.
Wow, sometimes I think it's also important to say when you don't know something, and I'll be honest, that's a really tough one, as you said, and I think that the only thing that I can say is that one, as men, the ability to speak up when they see something wrong coming out of a situation, that's really important. Secondly, it's really important for the women to be confident enough that if they are in a situation that they don't like, that they can be able to sort of speak up and walk out of that situation. And then last but not least, make sure that they're surrounding themselves with people that they can speak to, both men and women, so that they can also bounce ideas and say, hey, you know what, Vanessa, I got into this situation. I don't feel comfortable about it. What do you think? And usually, if you're feeling uncomfortable about a situation, it's not the right situation. Get out of it as much as you can. And I know that that may not always be possible, but I think that it's really important for us to think about it in that way.
Yes. And if I might add, creating a safe place, where women can actually talk about these things. Like you did mention, it's not always easy to speak out, especially when you don't feel safe or you don't have someone that you could actually open up to and talk to. Be it, in the professional, in the workplace, or even as an entrepreneur, because I've also had such experiences. When you're taking projects or you're attending meetings, and that this is what you're proposing, but this is actually what's being proposed back to you. and it happens a lot. But then, being able to speak up is very, very important. Um, but yes, I mean, this is work in progress. In there and a little bit, talking more about this, like you did mention, social media is a fantastic platform to talk about this and, get people informed about some of the challenges that we women experience, and how they can actually help us to make things better. Okay, so that's all that we have on questions today. I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are. And before we close, or before we leave today, one last word for our audience.
I think the one closing thoughts I can say is that as wives, partners, and therefore, when we as men support the women in our lives, we're supporting our life ourselves, right? In fact, supporting women is not an altruistic thing to do. It's a natural thing that we be doing any day and or anyway. So we need to really think about it from that perspective and not feel like it's a chore or something that you have to really think about. Let's make it the order of business. Let's make it the norm to really support each other, to support the women in our lives and make sure that they thrive. Because at the end of the day, when the women in our lives thrive, we also thrive. And that's sort of my closing thoughts.
Thank you so much, Charles. I hope we can do this again soon when you're back from your leave.
Thank you.
So I wish you all the best. Have fun, and we'll talk later.
Thank you so much and have a great
Okay,
day.
you too. So thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you so much for your questions. I hope that we will take this further. You've heard everything that Charles has said. Go out there, inspire another woman, offer her support, and doing this, we will, we will continue to build and we will continue to grow. Thank you so much for your time. Bye for now.